Welcome, everyone. It's Wednesday. That means Wildcard Wednesday. I want to first say I watched Scott Adams deliver the news about his cancer diagnosis and his courageous admission that he may be gone by this summer. I can't think of a more mentally tough way to face one's passing, one knowing. And he actually said, excuse me, and if you don't know who Scott Adams is, he's the creator of Dilbert. He's been doing a podcast for ages, kind of one of the originals, who just sits down and reads you the news with a cup of coffee. And the courage and the bravery, I hope I can be that way someday. It was very sad news. Sad news about President Biden as well, former president. And but there's a lot of controversy there. We're not going to get into that today. We've got some dumb and dumber today, and we've got some smart and smarter today. So it's going to be fun. Before I go any further, please hit subscribe just wherever you're listening or watching. Click that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. It doesn't cost you anything. We'd just love to have you on board. We've got everything from Chris Cuomo. No, not Chris Cuomo. James Comey. They're kind of similar if you think about it. To Tim Walz. We got a lot for you today. So without further ado, I love these protests. I hate the protests that interrupt graduations. Those are a bummer, like at Columbia, where they just couldn't stop themselves from chanting Free Palestine. I'm not going to show you that today. This one's a gem. This is a protester who just doesn't have words to explain why she's protesting. Roll it, Misty.
You're calling for the impeachment of Trump and Vance. In your mind, what have they done that deserves to be impeached?
I believe Elizabeth Warren gave 100 examples of that on his 100th day.
Oh, yeah, I didn't hear her comments. Can you name a few?
The number of points of corruption that he has. I mean, I don't even know where, I'm sorry, speechless, don't even know where to begin. I mean, from insider trading to pardoning friends who donated to his campaign, pardoning their family members. The list goes on and on. The corruption is obvious.
With regards to his pardons, did you feel the same way about Joe Biden when he pardoned his family?
You know, that is not something that I'm going to comment on.
Life is hard, but it's harder when you're stupid.
Oh, thank you, John Kennedy, for those final. I think that was John Kennedy, the senator from Louisiana. Priceless, right? Because first she turned to Elizabeth Warren's 100 reasons, but of those 100, there's nothing clear came to the top of her mind except points of corruption and pardoning family members, which is exactly what Joe Biden did. And when bless this interviewer, bless his little heart, when he pushed back and said, "Did you feel the same way about Biden?" I'm not going to comment on that. Well, why? And do you not see the hypocrisy? But I think, sadly, yeah, you exposed yourself as kind of being stupid or really ill-prepared, which is also kind of stupid to be ill-prepared. If you're going to go out and protest and you're going to agree to an interview with a microphone and a camera in front of you, you might want to have something to say. But I fear that I know that so many of these protesters are out there just because they're mad, because they hate Trump, and this is what they do, and they can't see the hypocrisy. All right, so let me take a moment to remind you about my good friends at besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com. So it's dads and grads time, right? There is no better gift for your dad or your grad or your granddad or whoever than the gift of good grilling and healthy eating. If you want to honor with a great gift that will last a lifetime, this one will be used, unforgettable, and it's truly hot because it comes from besthotgrill.com. It's the Solaire Infrared Grill. Solaire Infrared Grills heat up to 1,000 degrees in just 3 minutes, and they produce wonderfully tasty, juicy food that's unmatched by any conventional grill. I have one. I can vouch for this. Maybe you're hitting the road. You're going to have a staycation. Solaire has hot and fast portable, built-in, and cart models to help you step up your grilling. So there's something for everyone. All Solaire infrared grills are made in the USA, which is one of the reasons I'm so happy to endorse them. They're built to last. Solaire grills deliver the wow that everybody likes to get in a gift or a major person. Learn more about the amazing Solaire infrared grills at besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com. I have been clipping some of Charlie Kirk's stuff, and Charlie Kirk and I aren't aligned on every value, but what I love that he's doing and what I so applaud is he's going on to college campuses and universities and talking to people, challenging them. But I love what happened here. This isn't Charlie Kirk challenging someone or someone challenging Charlie Kirk. This is someone coming to Charlie Kirk and saying, if all these people around me are right, how did I do okay? You got to see it. Let's roll it, Misty.
So I want you to answer me this. How is it that coming up in Chicago, East Garfield, and coming up in Cabrini Green, can you tell me how is it that coming from a city like that and getting to a place where we came from a single parent home to a no parent home, can you tell me how is it that I was able to get married, which in June I'll be married 24 years. I have a 23-year-old son and a 21-year-old son, got through school, got a degree, went back and got another one. Can you explain to me how systemic racism kept me from doing that?
It doesn't. Systemic racism didn't, because every person can make good decisions and flourish in this country regardless of the color of their skin.
So then how is it that somebody like me did it though? I mean, wait, I'm black. I'm coming up in a oppressed era. So can you tell me how I was able to achieve that?
You tell me.
Well, from what I'm being told is because I was lucky.
It was probably hard work, good decisions, maybe a pastor or a mentor that, gave you good guidance.
So then why is it so hard for everybody else to look like me to understand?
You ask them.
Trying to.
Trying to. I like that guy a lot. It reminds me of a post I saw from our friend Adam B. Coleman online recently. He was on X and he described how his son said to him, "Dad, I want to be a bartender. I want to get a job as a bartender." So he went and applied and they said, "You're not ready to be a bartender, but we can hire you as a busboy." He went from being a busboy, worked really hard, to being a wait staff member, worked really hard, to, I can't remember, there was one other stage, maybe host, to being a bartender. So you may not get what you want right out of the gate. And if you think that everyone does, I'd encourage you to think again and really research, because you don't just plop into a job. Maybe some people do, and that's unusual, but you kind of got to work. And it's amazing how the harder you work, the luckier you get. So thank you, Charlie Kirk, for exposing that one. I love that one. Tim Walz is the governor of the state that I live in for now. You all saw him try to be Kamala Harris's sidekick during the presidential run, right? Okay. He continues to go out and just, I think, make an ass of himself and continue to embarrass the state of Minnesota, who elected him twice. Anyway. He was at the University of Minnesota giving a commencement speak when he let this one drop. Roll it, Misty.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye, just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared. Disappeared.
Now, we actually know where they are because they are in that, I think he's referring to the prison in, is it Venezuela? No, it's a different country and I'm spacing right now. El Salvador, Misty, thank you to the rescue this morning. El Salvador. And, but he couldn't even say the word Gestapo. Maybe that was a sign that he shouldn't have said it. And there are a lot of people in the Jewish community asking him to apologize for using that word. Comparing ICE agents to the Gestapo during Hitler's reign of terror, we're kind of getting tired of the Hitler references. Masked men. And he's saying masked men in unmarked vans, just disappearing people. Torture chambers. So happy that he got to speak to all those graduates from the University of Minnesota. And I bet they're thrilled they heard from their proud strong governor. Anyway, Tim, I really hope that you are not reelected. I just, please, plan your words more wisely. Look, I'm all about free speech. I am, but I just, come on. When you're going to use words like Gestapo and disappeared, he's playing right into the base. That's what he's doing. All right. Speaking of graduations, do you have a graduate that you know that is going to start their life in the real world? Do you have a dad that you're going to celebrate come Father's Day? It's dads and grads time. And it is time to go to my friends at besthotgrill.com to check out the Solaire infrared grill. This thing is amazing. And you can find them in cart grills, built-ins, or even just an individual grill that is portable. It's awesome. I have one of those. These things heat up to 1,000 degrees in 3 minutes. They're made in America, which you know I love. And maybe you're just planning to stick around all summer and you want that perfect grill. besthotgrill.com. Go check out these Solaire infrared grills. Again, 1,000 degrees in 3 minutes. What this does is it creates the juiciest, tastiest grilled food you're ever going to eat. I love this thing. Solaire infrared grills at besthotgrill.com. Whether it's a Father's Day gift or a graduation gift, it's a gift that keeps on giving, that people will remember. Infrared grills, Solaire infrared grills at besthotgrill.com, besthotgrill.com. Okay. Back in 2016, I caucused in Minnesota for Marco Rubio. I've been a huge fan of his for a long time, even though, I wasn't living in Florida. I saw something in this guy, and he was young then. He did not win the primary. Obviously, Donald Trump did, and Donald Trump was elected. Now Donald Trump has him as a Secretary of State. And I think people are really finally starting to see what a superstar this guy is. First, there are a couple pieces of tape I want to roll here. He was going to go to the Pope's inaugural mass. And so a reporter caught up with Marco Rubio and asked him a question about migration. And let's roll the tape.
Announced today that you're headed to Rome for the Pope's inaugural Mass. Pope Leo, in different parts of his life, has spoken passionately about the plight of migrants. How do you reconcile what the Vatican has said on compassion for migrants with the Trump administration's policies?
Well, first of all, the Pope is not a political figure. I know he's covered like one, but they're not. They're the earthly head of the Roman Catholic Church. And the church has strong social doctrine teachings, and I think there is not incompatibility. We too are compassionate towards migrants. I would argue there's nothing compassionate about mass migration. There's nothing compassionate about open borders that allows people to be trafficked here. There's nothing compassionate about either to the American people about flooding our country with individuals that are criminals and prey on our communities. There's nothing compassionate about any of that. But I would caution all of you and everyone, I understand there's this temptation to cover the papacy as a political office. It is not a political office. It is a spiritual office. And it is one that it has social teachings that are aligned with the faith and with the gospel. And but I don't believe those are incompatible with a national policy that tries to prevent mass migration, which is not compassionate to people that are being trafficked into our country, and is also not compassionate to people in the country who suffer gravely. When 1 million people come here illegally, if 1,000 of them are dangerous criminals, those are a lot of victims, and that's not fair either, and that's not compassionate. So, by the way, I mean, and I don't mean this to be snarky, but the Vatican has rules about who can come in and who can stay. So every place has that. It's what you do to protect your sovereignty. We are the most compassionate nation in the world. Every single year, 1 million people legally migrate to the United States permanently. Permanent residency. No other nation is nearly as compassionate as we are. We've been doing it for a long time. But it can't be 5 million people a year that come, with 4 million illegally. That's just not sustainable, and there's nothing compassionate about it for Americans.
I don't know. I can't argue with anything he said. I can't. He covered it beautifully. The Pope is not a political figure. Yeah, I'm going to go see his inaugural mass. He's a spiritual leader. He's the earthly leader of the church. All of that is good, but we're compassionate too, and there's nothing compassionate about the kind of migration that we've seen and what it does to Americans. Love it. Here's another example of Marco Rubio. So he's at a hearing in Washington, in the Senate, a Senate hearing yesterday, and Chris Van Hollen, whose name you may know because he went to El Salvador. Thanks again, Misty, for reminding me about the right country, El Salvador, to see Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who sadly, we remember that name more than we remember like Rachel Morin, who was murdered, and Laken Riley and many others, Jocelyn Ungare. Anyway, Chris Van Hollen visited him down there. You remember the photo of them having margaritas. So Chris Van Hollen decided that even though Marco Rubio was, I believe, unanimously voted to be the Secretary of State, unanimously confirmed by the Senate, here's how Chris Van Hollen, and this one goes a little bit, but it's so worth listening to. Here we go. Let's roll this, Misty.
I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's just a flippant statement, Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
I didn't ask
Senator,
questions.
please let the Secretary have
I'd be
the floor.
happy to, but then I can respond to his
Your
response.
time's up, Senator, and willfully used, I might add.
Well-
your remarks do not represent the view of this committee.
Well, Mr.
Secretary, please.
Well, I'd like to. I can't respond to everything he said because much of these are untrue, but I'll go through a few. First of all, I'm actually very proud of the work we've done with USAID. For example, I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique. I don't know how that makes us stronger and more prosperous as a nation.
I
don't regret
Sudan, Mr.
psychosocial support services.
I raised
USAID.
Sudan, Mr. Secretary.
Can I
not
respond,
Mozambique.
Mr. Chairman, or do I?
Senator, I'd ask you to suspend. You had 7 straight minutes.
I chose to
railing on-
use my time that way, Mr. Chairman. That's my right to
Please
use my
suspend.
time that way.
Can we
Secretary
pause it just a
Rubio.
second here, Misty, right there? It tickles me how much this gets into. But you said, I mean, they look so childish in these hearings very often. And, you know, it's political theater, and I get that. And it's been going on since the beginning of time in politics. But it's just so funny. And he doesn't want to let Marco Rubio respond because he doesn't want to hear what Marco Rubio has to say, what the secretary has to say. All right, continue from there, Misty.
Well, I can go on. I mean, there's other things here. We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. We spent $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means. So I can go on and on. I got the list here, and there's more. I didn't even bring the whole list. In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come,
Mr.
you're
Chairman,
going to see who you went to
look,
defend.
I'm sorry,
please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated
Senator,
comments like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You've had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court
Senator,
of the United States because
well,
he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge in the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy. No judge can tell me how I have to outreach to a foreign partner or what I need to say to them. And if I do reach to that foreign partner and talk to them, I am under no obligation to share that with the judiciary branch. Just like a judge cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister of Russia, they cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister or the president of El Salvador. And if I did negotiate with them, which we have responded to them, and we've told them, we've had communications with the president of El Salvador. I am under no obligation, under our division of powers in this country, and to share with the judicial branch how I conducted diplomacy of the United States. It would actually be counterproductive. If I started sharing with courts, or frankly, with the media, my conversations with foreign leaders and all of their details, no foreign leader would talk to me again, and we would break trust with them. So I have complied with every court order. What I won't comply with is an order to disclose what I'm saying and what we're talking about with a foreign leader, because then they won't talk to me. Diplomacy doesn't work that way. About the student visas, let me say this. I don't deport anybody, and I don't snatch anybody. The State Department does not have officers in the street snatching everybody. What I do is revoke visas, and it's very simple. A visa is not a right. It is a privilege. People apply for student visas to come into the United States and study. And if you tell me that you're coming to the United States to lead campus crusades, to take over libraries and try to burn down buildings and acts of violence, we're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what Ms. Ozturk did?
We're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what she
and if
did?
you do
Come
that,
on, Mr. Secretary.
and every single
You're
one
just
of these
blowing
cases, the
smoke
factors
here
are
now.
different.
Senator,
The bottom line is, if you're
Senator,
coming here to stir up trouble on our campuses, we will deny you a visa. And if you
Does
have
the
a
First
visa
Amendment
and we find
apply
you,
to
we will
people
revoke
living
it.
in the United
And
States?
we're going to do more. There are more coming. We're going to continue to revoke the visas of people who are here as guests and are disrupting our higher education facilities. People are paying money. These kids pay money to go to school, and they have to walk through
Writing
a bunch
an
of
op-ed
lunatics
to the
who are
tough
here on student
newspapers
visas.
disrupting the
Simple
foreign
as
policy
that.
of the United
I want to
States.
do more. I hope we can
That's
find more of these people.
pathetic, Mr.
In fact, the
Secretary.
other day, some guys led a riot. I forgot what university it was, and I asked, please, can you find the arrest records of all the people that were arrested at that riot at that campus? Because if any of them have a visa, we're going to revoke it.
I feel so much safer
All right,
when you lock
let's,
up people like Ms. Osterk, Ms. Secretary.
We've had enough time on the subject. Thank you very much. And we're going to move to Senator Lee.
Chris Van Hollen is clearly angry. That's fine. That's his right. But he's picking this one example, and I need to do more research into the example that he picked of someone who wrote an op-ed who's having their visa revoked or maybe facing a court decision about their visa. But look, again, if that's your argument against everything Marco Rubio said, good luck to you. Good luck to you, Chris Van Hollen. I think I think Maryland deserves so much better. Again, this is a guy who wrote like a little statement when Rachel Morin was killed, the mother of five, was killed by an illegal, raped and brutally murdered. And he didn't call the family, didn't go visit the family. He just kind of posted, we're sorry about that. But he'll go all the way to South America to visit El Salvador, to visit Kilmar Abrego Garcia and have a margarita with him. That's showing your stripes. Speaking of showing stripes, and I will say that I hear from good sources that in Chicago, they're very unhappy with Mayor Brandon Johnson. Very unhappy. It's still unclear to me, knowing this guy's background, how he got elected. But then again, here in Minneapolis, I don't know how Jacob Fry keeps getting elected. They are not liberal, they're illiberal. And let's let Brandon Johnson show us for himself. There's no other way to describe what he's about to say than that he is a racist. Again, this is the mayor of Chicago, one of the biggest cities in America. Let's roll it.
Some detractors that will push back on me and say, the only thing that the mayor talks about is the hiring of black people. No, what I'm saying is when you hire our people, we always look out for everybody else. We are the most generous people on the planet. I don't know too many cultures that have play cousins. That's how generous we are. We just make somebody a family member, right? This is how we are. And so business and economic neighborhood development, the deputy mayor is a black woman. Department of Planning and Development is a black woman. Infrastructure deputy mayor is a black woman. Chief operations officer is a black man. Budget director is a black woman. Senior advisor is a black man. And I'm laying that out because when you ask, how do we ensure that our people get a chance to grow their business?
That's how it is? That's the only way they can grow their business? The soft bigotry of low expectations. That they couldn't grow their business any other way? Tell that to Oprah. Oh, Oprah's lucky. She's a rare exception. Okay, tell that to Whoopi Goldberg. Oh, she's an exception. Okay, tell that to, I could go on and on. You get the idea. If this were a Jewish man saying the same things, that he hired Jewish men and Jewish women only because they're the most generous people on the face of the earth, I don't think it would be accepted. Well, it turns out that the DOJ is now going to investigate the hiring practices of this mayor. It's going to be interesting. Okay. It's a Wildcard Wednesday favorite of mine. Hillary Rodham Clinton. The woman who said, I'm not going to stand by my man, but she did. The woman who overlooked so much of what Bill Clinton did in their marriage, because it was in her best interest to remain in power. But she was asked recently what advice she would give to the first female president. And again, wouldn't it be the same advice you would give any president? Or is that just me? Well, you got to hear Hillary's response. Roll it.
What advice do you have for the first female president of the United States?
Well, first of all, don't be a handmaiden to the patriarchy, which kind of eliminates every woman on the other side of the aisle, except for very few. Lisa Murkowski.
Liz Cheney.
Yeah, there's a few. Look, first we have to get there, and it is, obviously so much harder than it should be. If a woman runs who I think would be a good president, as I thought Kamala Harris would be, and as I knew I would be, I will support that woman.
You really thought Kamala Harris would be a good president? Really? Really? I think you're a handmaiden to the left. That's what I think. I mean, don't be a handmaid to the patriarchy, and that eliminates every woman on the other side except for a few, Lisa Murkowski and Liz Cheney. Really? So she's saying all the women in the president's cabinet, all the women in the Senate, all the women in the House who happen to be Republicans are handmaidens to the patriarchy. Really? This has an awful familiar ring to it, like basket of deplorables. I'd love for her to sit across from Condoleezza Rice and call her a handmaiden to the patriarchy. Again, these are comments for her base. You could hear that group. They ate it up. They loved it. Oh, patriarchy, patriarchy. Listen, I'm going to say this again, because I can't believe these messages are still alive and well in America, because they're so outdated. I'm here as living proof of this. You may have heard me tell this story before, but recently I got an email from a young lady at the high school from which I graduated. And she said she wanted to become a sports reporter and she wanted advice. So I asked her why she wanted to become a sports journalist. And among her answers, the primary thing was so she could be an example to other little girls, because women are constantly being shut down in sports. Let that sink in 2025. So I wrote her back and I gave her a list of women going back to Leslie Visser, to producers and directors that I know, heads of sports departments at Amazon Prime, Molly Solomon, who oversees the Olympic Games for NBC. I just, Susie Kolber, Andrea Kramer, Hannah Storm, Robin Roberts. I gave her this list and it goes back further. And I said, there are more opportunities for women in sports today than ever before. But this is the message this young high school senior thinks is correct. I don't know who's feeding her that. Maybe she's reading Teen Vogue. I don't know. But it's not correct. So, this don't be a handmaiden to the patriarchy. Oh, God. Meanwhile, this guy, I guess, thinks he's a woman, so therefore could be a handmaiden to the patriarchy. Watch this interview with two people at some Pride event. I'm not even sure where this took place, but again, thank you to the interviewer for pressing these people. Go ahead and roll it.
Simple as, if she says she's a woman, she is. Okay. I'm a woman.
So you're a woman?
Yeah.
Okay, when you tell me you're a woman, what does that mean you are?
I don't know, it's as simple as that. I feel like a woman, that's how I choose to present myself.
What feelings do you have that you relate with being a woman?
Femininity, I don't know. That's what I'm more comfortable with.
Okay, why?
Couldn't tell you.
But you are a woman?
Yes.
Okay, but you don't know what a woman is?
Well, I do know what a woman is. It's anyone who identifies as a woman.
Any further?
I cannot say much. I'm non-binary, so it's...
So you're not a woman or a man?
No, I am not.
Okay, so you know you're not a woman. What is a woman that you're like, no, that's not what I am?
I just don't like being associated with like femininity or masculinity. I do not feel I fall in either of those categories at all.
Okay, listen. You can identify however the hell you want. All right? You really can. It's no skin off my back. I don't think people are transphobic or homophobic or whatever you think they are. What people don't like is being told to change the language for you. So clearly the second interview was a female, but she didn't want to be identified as either a man or a woman. She says she's non-binary. Okay, because that's the way she wants to present. That's fine. But she can't tell you what a woman is? And the trans woman, the guy who says he's a woman now, and I only clear my throat because I really had to clear my throat. He's saying now, I'm a woman. I can't tell you why I feel that way. I just am. I feel more feminine. Okay, maybe you're gay. But you're not a woman because the word woman means something. And it doesn't mean you. That's why there's a trans in front of woman. You're a trans woman. You're not a woman. Okay? You're not a woman. And don't tell us to change the language so that anyone who feels like a woman should be called a woman. Because language is very important. And in changing it, it's sort of a Marxist approach to gaining power. They'll change the language. And it really can entrap a lot of people. But no, you're not a woman. You're a trans woman. That's the whole reason for that word. But you're not a woman. And if you want to be non-binary, that's up to you. But you still know what a woman is. Because guess what? Your mom was a woman, which is how you came to be. Because only a woman can give birth. Don't tell me a man can give birth. God, I really hope we get out of this gender ideology stuff soon. All right, well, last one for you. I promised a James Comey. And, you know, I hear people say that neither Democrats nor Republicans like this guy. But they'll still put him on TV. Oh, yes, they will. Because you know what? He's selling a book. So you heard about his little 8647 shell formation. He said he saw it in the sand. And here's his explanation. He took down the post because he didn't want to be controversial. But let's hear his explanation of this shell formation he famously saw in the sand. Go ahead and roll it.
You were back in the middle of a political firestorm.
Yeah, for walking on the beach with my wife. So I don't know how we ended up here. It never occurred to me that it was any kind of controversial thing, but that's the time we live in.
So take me back to the walk on the beach.
We were walking on the beach. We went to the beach to prepare for this week, which was the launch of my book, and to think about the book and to prepare to answer questions about it. And we were walking back towards the road, and we saw in the sand someone had arranged shells with numbers. And Patrice, my wife, said, why would someone put an address in the sand? And I said, I don't know. And we stood over it, and I said, I think it's some kind of like political message. And she said, 86, when I was a server, she did a lot of work in restaurants, meant to remove an item from the menu when you ran out of ingredients. And I said, well, to me, as a kid, it always meant to leave a place, to ditch a place. I said, that's really clever. So then she said, you should take a picture of that. And I did. And I posted it on my Instagram account and thought nothing more of it until I heard through her that people were saying it was some sort of a call for assassination, which is crazy. But I took it down. Even if I think it's crazy, I don't want to be associated with violence of any kind.
Oh, good for you, James. If you haven't watched the Martha Stewart documentary, I think it's on Netflix. I recommend you do. You get another glimpse at part of who James Comey is in the Martha Stewart documentary. Yes, you heard me right. Okay. If that isn't what you just heard from James Comey, isn't the biggest bunch of crap you've heard today, I don't know what else you're hearing. I mean, we were walking on the beach because we're preparing for the book release and we wanted to talk about questions on the beach. And then why would someone put their address on the beach? Why would you immediately assume that shells arranged in numbers was an address? The whole thing is so stupid. I'm almost sorry I gave it any time today on Wildcard Wednesday, but I like to expose people who are trying to gaslight you. Oh, and James Comey's one of the biggest at doing it. So if you hadn't seen that interview provided to us by MSNBC and Nicole Wallace, who is she's not a very talented journalist. I'm going to say that. Okay. She's just not. And she has a massive platform. So there. Okay. I said it. And I know I used to work for NBC, but I can have a disagreement or a critique of Nicole Wallace. I can. Yes, I can. All right. I guess be brave, do good. We saw some examples of being brave. Although, I was going to say Marco Rubio. That courage is built in. It doesn't take a lot of bravery to stand up to Chris Van Hollen, quite frankly. He's such a weak politician. But anyway, and do good. It's the littlest thing. Smile at someone today that you make eye contact with the grocer or anybody. You'd be surprised the ripple effect that it has. We'll see you next time. Hey, you can keep up with the Trump administration when you subscribe to the Trump Report. It's an email that brings you daily highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Subscribe today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump.